And we're not actually going to heal what's hurting if we're not actually willing to look at what's hurting us. Hi there, welcome to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos. I'm Lindsay, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. So grab a coffee, get comfy, and get ready for a little bit of chaos and a whole lot of sunshine. Hey there, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos. Today's episode is actually all about the various kinds of sunshine that we seek when the chaos hits. I'm talking about the ways we seek to fill ourselves up when we are depleted or stressed or sad or anxious. You might call them coping strategies or vices or crutches or numbing agents or stress relievers, regardless of what you call them. Today, I want to look at some of the not so healthy ways that we cope. And I also want to look at some options for some healthier replacement behaviors that we can try. I say we because I actually need some ideas. I need some help in this area too. So we're going to start with a funny story about one of my personal vices, Amazon. I've recently made a major shift away from spending my money here, Amazon, for many, many reasons, not the least of them my moral compass. I know that it's not a great way or place to spend my money, and yet I still freaking love it when the curtains I wanted at 6 p.m. on a Thursday arrive at noon on a Friday and I never even had to leave my house. So, I mean, it has its perks. Obviously it has its perks. And it has some downsides. One of these downsides is the sheer ease with which we can spend money on apps like Amazon. So here's where my story fits in. I was living in my little rented house post-separation during the pandemic, waking up to a new heap of fresh hell to navigate every single day. There was so much to navigate in those days, emotionally, logistically, health-wise, heart-wise. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights in 2020 that I discovered the joy of online shopping. I found myself in bed at 3 a.m. with a $400 cart full of everything from acne cream to silicone gummy bear molds. I should say this. At that time, I did not have acne and I have never really liked gummy bears. Anyway, okay, so my son, who was 11 at the time, he noticed that packages started arriving at the house more and more frequently. He also started questioning the amount of money these packages were costing me. Smart and fiscally responsible kid. After a few weeks, he brought it up to me again and he said, "Mom, you're ordering a lot of stuff on Amazon. Do we really need all this stuff?" So I stated all my reasons. It's inexpensive. It arrives so quickly. It's fun. It's exciting to receive a package, etc., etc. I also threw in that scrolling Amazon was a great way to kill time when I was wide awake from 2 a.m. till 4 a.m. each of my sleepless nights. My incredible boy then put the pieces together for me. He realized I was shopping when I was bored and despondent, a fact that I had not yet put together. So he looked at me and he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember, it was a couple years ago, but "Mom, I think you should not be on Amazon between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. That's probably when you're buying stuff you don't actually need." And it was at that moment that he earned the title of life coach in our house. It was also at that moment that I started to consider what voids I was filling with online shopping in the darkest hours, both literal and emotional, of my life. People engage in a number of various coping strategies, and we're going to touch on a few of them today, but I want to stay on the topic of retail therapy. I've air quotes happening over here for a minute, as it was my own personal numbing strategy for a good while, and admittedly, it still is sometimes. The term retail therapy originated in the 1980s in the US, and it actually became more commonly used during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's defined as the act of shopping in order to improve mood or avoid difficult emotions. It's obviously a facetious title, as shopping is not a form of actual therapy, but in fact, an avoidance or numbing tactic when it's used to cover up hard feelings or give yourself a boost when you're low. So why does it give us a high? Why does it feel like therapy in the moment? That addictive little neurotransmitter, dopamine, we get a hit of that delicious chemical whenever something novel and enjoyable comes into our lives. We get bigger dopamine hits for some things than others. So think like winning the lottery versus getting a like on social media, but we seek it just the same. It hits the same center in our brain. So if you're actually interested in more information about this pleasure-giving neurochemical, there was an episode from season 1, episode 7 called Dopamine and Devices. So you can check that out. For me, it really hits when the item arrives on my doorstep. In fact, receiving mail in a general sense gives me so much joy. Fun fact, it's definitely one of my simple pleasures. I actually recently received a postcard from a friend in the mail, and it was so exciting. I shed happy tears, and that little hit of joy lasted for days. I think because we receive mail so infrequently these days, and it just makes me so happy. I think that's one of the reasons why the item delivery is the best part for me. Right. Okay. So the thing arrives on my doorstep. My brain is so happy and it's screaming like new stuff, distraction, something novel. Now I don't have to think about how anxious I am because I'm going to have a new duvet cover and that's all I have to think about for a while. Okay. So now we have all this feel good pleasure hormones sloshing around in our brains for a few days. The duvet cover looks great with your throw pillows. Oh my gosh, it looks so good. Over time though, what happens? And you know how this goes. The novelty wears off. And all of a sudden, you don't really notice the duvet cover anymore. And the next thing you know, you're in bed, awake at 2 a.m., sleepless. And what are you doing? You're scrolling for curtains to go with the duvet cover. And the cycle starts all over again. Because when the novelty wears off, you need to start a fresh new online cart in order to get the hit again. So my very astute 11-year-old life coach helped me out of that cycle for a long time, but ultimately it didn't solve the problem. I still had big feelings that needed processing, long periods of boredom and despair that needed filling. The shopping wasn't real therapy. It was a band-aid in the moment. And that's the case for many of us with our escape method of choice. It feels good for a time and it does the trick for a bit. And then we ultimately end up back where we started, no further ahead, with a closet full of duvet covers in every color of the rainbow. The dopamine feels good. It makes us feel good. And that's why we seek it. And oftentimes, the things we choose are not great options because sometimes the most unhealthy choices are the ones that offer the biggest hit the fastest, and they make us feel better quicker, and it helps us to push down those big feelings. Unfortunately, that feeling we get, the hit, that rush, it's actually addictive, and that can cause myriad issues when the thing we love to do can actually end up making us sick or broke or alone. And some of those numbing agents, and there's a huge list, I'll just list a few, could be alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, sleep, food, social media, dating apps, video games, working overtime. Maybe you scroll social media for hours when you're home alone on a Friday. Maybe you drink a glass of wine when you're making dinner to come down from the day. Maybe you treat yourself to a bag of chips in a blizzard after a breakup. Maybe you find comfort in getting matches and messages on Tinder at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. Regardless of what it is, each of these things in moderation wouldn't necessarily cause any big problems for us. However, it's not always what we're doing. It's not the activity itself. It's more important to consider why we're doing it and how much we're doing it. So what is the reason that you're diving into that dating app? It's because you're lonely? How much are you doing those things? And how much is that impacting your mental and physical health? That's what we have to think about. So even things that feel like great choices, they're just masking our deeper issues if we aren't using them with thought and intention. For example, this is actually something I read the other day. It was totally a hit for me. It was like, yeah, sure, go on your solo mountain yoga spiritual retreat. You might get better at pigeon pose and you might get really good at being alone, but don't expect to come back and be any better at relationships. I laughed, but it's true. When we use things to escape, we're covering up the true issue, and we're not actually going to heal what's hurting if we're not actually willing to look at what's hurting us. So I used Amazon when I was depressed and anxious. You might use food when you're sad. You might use alcohol when you want to dim those big feelings a bit. We do what we can to make it through the day sometimes. Yes, absolutely, no judgment. But over long periods of time, if we aren't willing to look at what we're trying to mask or dim or dull or numb, we could end up hurting ourselves and, equally as important, our relationships. So if we got drunk or high or simply went back to bed every single time we felt sad or anxious or lonely, it would make for an awfully unhealthy life. It's hard to be in authentic relationship with people and do the work to heal when you're numbed out or you're sleeping or you're riding the high of a new duvet cover. So what are we going to do about it? What are some things that we can do to work through the things that need healing, those big feelings and yucky things, and what are some healthier band-aids for the hard moments? I'm not ever going to tell you that you should never take another nap when your heart needs a reset, or that you shouldn't go shopping for attention on a dating app when you're lonely. I'm just saying that we could be interspersing some of these things with other healthier things so we can actually be available to look at the parts of ourselves that are hurting. Okay, here's some options. So let's talk about mindfulness. This can look as intense as a meditation practice or as casual as noticing the temperature of the air on your skin when you walk out the door in the morning. Being mindful just means essentially being present in the moment, in your body and in your heart. Sometimes this means sitting with yucky emotions and feeling where they show up in your body. Though if this is new for you, I suggest you titrate this. Just feel into it a little bit at a time, not all at once. For example, you could just say to yourself, I feel anxious. There's a tightness in my chest. And then move your attention away from it if it becomes too much. Deep breathing is another way to get in contact with your body instead of moving away from it and into that video game. It's actually it right there. Numbing is moving away from the feelings, and mindfulness is moving towards them. Mindfulness is essentially just awareness. Just be aware of what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and where you're feeling it. And it's a really great way to start healing whatever it is that's hurting you. All right, let's talk about emotional outlets. So often our knee-jerk reaction is to hide those hard feelings because, well, they're hard. But when we find a safe and effective way to actually get them out instead of pushing them further down and masking them, we move closer to soothing and healing them. I have kept a journal since I was 12. No joke. I have an entire box of them in my basement, and actually my best friend knows exactly where they are, so she can dispose of them immediately and appropriately when I die. Many, many times over the years, just simply the act of writing down the words, I'm lonely, or I'm scared, or I'm angry, has been enough to release some of those feelings out of my body. It's like a pressure valve release, you know. I often find too, because my journal's for my eyes only, I can be really fully honest and vulnerable and present in them with no fear of judgment. Another emotional outlet is obviously talking to a proper trained therapist or even just a trusted friend. Sometimes having someone else help you hold the space that all those feelings are taking up can be super helpful. And if it's uncomfortable for you to lean on people, you can pay someone to do that. And then it's an exchange, right? And it doesn't feel so burdensome. And as always, I will go back to creative outlets because that's always been super important for me. During some of the yuckiest and darkest times of my life, I learned how to paint. I learned how to draw. I learned how to play the piano. It was very therapeutic, and it gave me a safe space to put some of the hard things without ending up with a hangover or an empty bank account. Okay, so another option would be physical activity. And I know, you're sick of being harped on about moving your body when all you want to do is hide on the couch under that super soft blanket with a glass of wine in your hand. I get it. And you can do all those things. You can hide under that blanket with that glass of wine. Sometimes numbing isn't numbing, but it's actually self-care. However, there's moderation. Maybe you go for a walk before you hunker in for a night of Bridgerton and blankets. The act of moving our bodies actually physically helps move your feelings as well, because energy flows differently. The body pumps fresh oxygenated blood to our brains and hearts, and it can help us hit reset in those hard moments. Mindful movement is also really helpful here. If you're feeling a tightness in your chest from that anxiety, try doing a few chest opening postures from that yoga class you took in 2012. Remember that? Movement can go a long way in helping us become more aware of our emotions and move towards healing them. Okay, this is a big one for me, social connection. And I have said this before on the podcast, but it bears repeating because it's important. I don't often feel like things in my life are real, like real in quotes, until I have shared them with my best friend, S. Connecting with trusted friends and confiding in them or asking them for help and support is a great way to interrupt the cycle of numbing. Like I said before, it's actually difficult to be in authentic relationship with someone else if you're numb. Leaning into social groups and social activities, family members, support groups can be very helpful in maintaining access to those feelings in a safe way. It doesn't have to be as overwhelming when you're sharing them with someone else, right? You may actually also find a few like OMG, me too moments, which can go a long way in helping us to feel connected and seen and not as lonely in these big feelings. We're also going to talk about self-care, because in the moment when you're feeling those things, you might just look for that quick hit of like, I just want it to go away. I just don't want it to feel like this anymore. So I'm asking you, I'm challenging you to put the wine back in the fridge. Put your phone down, close your work computer. Don't buy that chocolate bar. Don't light that joint just for a minute. Just for a minute. Don't do that. Here are some in the moment strategies that can help. And once you've done something healthy for yourself, then maybe you can take a weed gummy or you can go on Amazon or whatever. If you catch yourself trying to hide from a feeling, I want you to do this in the moment. Try one of these. Ask where the feeling is in your body. Put your hand gently on that spot and say, I see you. You might ask why that feeling is coming up right now in this moment. You might try positive self-talk or a mantra. You're okay. You're amazing. You're a badass. Whatever works for you, whatever pumps your tires. Ask why you're leaning into that particular vice in that moment. Is it from a want or a need? And if it's a need, if you need that glass of wine, try something else first. You might call a friend. You might leave the house and go for a walk or a drive. A change of scenery can make a big difference. Pick up a pen, write down a few words, write down feelings words. Just say angry, frustrated, lonely, sad, whatever it is. Listen to a podcast. Listen to someone else's voice for a while, because sometimes we're just on repeat listening to our own voices in our heads, right? Cook something, color in a coloring book, make an appointment to see your therapist. Just that simple act of self-care in that moment can be enough to reassure you that you're going to be okay. Do 10 jumping jacks or 10 push-ups, or stretch your body, or watch a movie. Listen to someone else's story in an audiobook. Do a puzzle. Go to the gym or a run or whatever it is. So in those moments, just pick a thing that you can do before you lean into the unhealthy vice. Lastly, I'm not suggesting that you always have to manage this on your own and extinguish all your escape habits just by going for a walk. Clearly, that's not going to solve everything for you. Sometimes we need to seek professional help, and that's okay. Maybe it's a Reiki practitioner, a psychologist, or another counselor, or maybe even your family doctor for some advice on how to develop effective and healthy coping strategies for these big feelings and these highs and lows. No one should have to do the healing on their own. And there's strength in admitting that we need some help. Therapy's actually become so normalized in recent years, and the stigma around seeking professional mental health support is fading out, thankfully. I actually saw something on Instagram the other day about dating. In our 20s, we asked questions like, do you want kids and what's your job? And now dating in our 40s, we're asking questions like, do you know your attachment style and have you been to therapy? So we're normalizing this sense of like reaching out and asking for help. People appreciate when other people have been willing to look at their stuff, willing to look at their hurts, willing to look at their traumas and their challenges. So don't be afraid to seek professional help if you need it. And also, you should brag about it because it's a badass move. All right, what do I have in the stacks today? Okay, zenhabits.net. It's a great article called Refraining from Letting Ourselves Numb Out by Leo Babauta. This article lays out some creative ways to stop numbing and escaping. So maybe there's something in there that Leo can help you with that I wasn't able to today. The Language of Emotions is another one. It's a book by Carla McLaren. This book looks at emotions and what they're trying to tell us. Carla teaches us that emotions aren't problems to be solved, but if you learn their language, your emotions can become an indispensable source of vitality, personal growth, and profound healing. I am actually really excited to dig into this one myself. All right, my gratitude moment goes out to my super incredible friend and work colleague, S. She inspired this episode with a parking lot conversation earlier in the school year that lit this episode idea on fire. We decided to be each other's Amazon addiction sponsors that day, and I am super grateful for her vulnerability and her introspection around the idea of escape and numbing. Grateful to know you, S, and so grateful for the episode idea. So thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being here yet again. Always so grateful to have you listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.